Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Today we have ourselves quite a show as we have a lot to get into in the world of Southern California sports. As there will be football in Southern California, as the Rams and Chrargers have a game this week against one another. I'll be previewing that matchup as basically there's not going to be a whole lot of stars that'll be playing, but expect to see the players battling for a spot on the 53-man roster. And how about LAFC just smacking Real Salt Lake in the League's Cup round of 16 match? Impressive stuff as they'll be taking on Monterrey in the quarterfinals tonight. Can LAFC continue their impressive ways? And speaking of impressive waves, how about the Dodgers? Didn't do much at the trade deadline, and they are having a nice little vice grip of first place in the NL West. Can't say the same for the Angels, as they really struggled against the Seattle Mariners last weekend, but they managed to pick up 2 out of 3 against the San Francisco Giants. And the Padres, they're still trying to tread water in terms of making the playoffs, but it's looking more bleak and bleak by them by the day. Also, speaking of bleak, the Sparks, while they have been beating up on the Indiana Fever, it's just the Indiana Fever. We have all that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Friday afternoon, Friday morning, Friday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you have made your way into episode 144 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. And without any further delay, let's do this. But first and foremost, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on Spreaker. Please do follow IE Sports Radio on Twitter, or formerly now known as X, but will always be known as Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at IE Sports Radio. Also, do follow them on Facebook. So, even though most people don't really use Facebook, as all you just gotta do is type in the word IE, then sports, then radio in the search bar, and then basically like us on Facebook, and then boom, that's how you're able to follow us on Facebook. We also have a website, www.iesportsradio.com, and when you go there, you will see all of our shows, our IE Sports Radio blog, all the sports news, our Hall of Fame, our Fans of the Month, our pages dedicated to each of our podcasts, our community forum, and our merchandise shop, which will be updated as the days go by. For the past 9 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. I want to thank everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. We also want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. This is some of the best jerky you can get your hands on. And they are on Instagram at Planet Jerky, and DM them that you bought your jerky from hearing this ad on any of our shows, including this one. Once again, huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Beef Jerky. And you don't even need to go to Lake Elsinore Storm single A affiliate baseball game. You basically just need to order online. Their website is www.planetjerky.net, and basically they have all sorts of varieties of Planet Jerky beef jerky. Once again, thank you to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. And without any further delay, let us begin with the SoCal sports action. So we're going to start off with the NFL just because the NFL is back, ladies and gentlemen, as the Chargers and Rams, they both have games this week. And it's against one another as they both face one another tomorrow at SoFi Stadium at 6 p.m. Pacific time. I will say this, I'm not too big of a preseason guy. I mean, I like the preseason. I'm hyped to see what the preseason can bring, as basically it's development for all of the players that are trying to make the roster, and it's just to make sure that some players who are going to get some playing time that aren't like superstars won't like be rusty for when the season begins. But honestly, I just don't want to get too hyped for the preseason. If a team goes perfect in preseason, that's no big deal. If a team goes winless in preseason, that's no big deal. Like, for example, the Chargers went winless in preseason last year, and eventually it turned out great for them. Albeit it could have been even better had they won that playoff game, but I digress. Before we continue, I want to give a shout out to the chat room. Mike C, a.k.a. Mikey Two Guns, the host of our Boston show, Our Bleepin' City. Larry B's in the chat room, and Angela Winstead, the head of our PR. I definitely do appreciate all of y'all tuning in. And Larry B, the head of iSports Radio, the man who needs no introduction, saying SoCal. And Angela says, have a great show, Teran. Thank you, Angela. So, back to the Chargers. So, most of their players are back after having an illness, which I don't know what this illness was about. But honestly, it's good to see players like Joey Bosa back and Quentin Johnson back. I think Rashawn Slater was back. They did, however, lose one player to an injury in practice, and that was actually Joshua Palmer. So he actually caught a touchdown pass from Justin Herbert, and he actually laid down on the ground afterward. He was getting treatment from the trainers. Now, I don't know if he's out for a significant period of time. I don't think it was too significant or too serious, as Daniel Popper basically reported this as basically, yeah, it was a highlight that Joshua Palmer caught from Justin Herbert, posted from the Chargers social media, but little did everyone know that after the video, or after the touchdown, Joshua Palmer was cramping. Now, Joshua Palmer is not like the big name receiver like Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, but he's kind of an under-the-radar receiver, and I think he's definitely a player that could impact the Chargers in terms of their receiver core. And yesterday, Justin Herbert led the Chargers to a 14-point comeback in the end-of-game period, which I think is pretty impressive. And then there are some players to watch for, and then Asante Samuel Jr. had, through 12 practices, has had 16 passes deflected and 4 interceptions. This is all according to Daniel Popper, the athletic senior writer who covers the Los Angeles Chargers, which I think is good stuff. So this was from Popper. He says he left practice in 7-on-7 drills and went to the medical tent, and he did not return. And then, yeah, there was no update on this, which, I guess no news is good news, but I don't know what to make of this. I've been hearing that he jogged off and he got help to the medical tent, but I guess it's not anything too significant. So, all in all, I don't think it's anything to hit the panic button on too much, but I will say this. I don't want the Chargers losing players too early in the season, just because the Chargers don't want to lose their key guys. And I will say this, I guess if there's one play, I mean, they have Jalen Guyton returning from ACL surgery, or an ACL injury, which man, that's just so bad. And obviously he suffered that from that Jacksonville Jaguars game in week number 3. Yeah, week number 3 in meaningless garbage time, which, yeah. So all in all, for the Chargers, I would like to see, I don't think Joshua Palmer's injury is something to be too overly screaming your head off for or too panicky about, but it's something to monitor, and this is why the Chargers bulked up on wide receivers. They also have Dante Hightower, this is why they also drafted Quentin Johnson, and then this is why they still have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And once Jalen Guyton gets healthy, then he could slide into that wide receiver 3 or that slot receiver. I'm pretty sure Jalen Guyton's going to be slot receiver, but I'm sure Quentin Johnson is going to be the, the, sounds like rhymes with wide receiver 3. But all in all, it's been a good camp so far. Even Alohi Gilman has gotten some good reps. He's had some good moments, and even the Alohi crew, which is Alohi Gilman's hometown or his fan base, just because he's from Hawaii. Also want to give my condolences to everyone affected by the Maui fires. Sending all my love from SoCal. So much love. So, anyway, all in all for the Chargers, they're looking solid as they head into their preseason game against the Rams. I do not expect Justin Herbert to start. Easton Stick will be their quarterback 1, and then who knows, maybe we will see, blanking on the guy that took TCU to the championship, Max Duggan. Maybe we'll see 2 of those guys split time, but expect Easton Stick to take most of the reps this Saturday against the Rams. But all in all, it looks like the Chargers aren't looking overly bad in terms of injuries. There hasn't been any reports of season-ending injuries, which is good. And if you're healthy for the most part in this point of the season, you have to give it up to your team because they're doing something right. Now, as for the Rams, last time I reported on the Rams, they had a season-ending injury. Well, not a season-ending injury. They had a serious injury where Cooper Kupp actually hurt I think it was his hamstring or his calf, and every Rams fan held their breath. But it turned out it was going to be a day-to-day injury, according to Matt LaFleur, or Mike LaFleur. The LaFleur that is the offensive coordinator for the Rams, and not the LaFleur that is the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. But all in all, for Cooper Kupp, he is totally, he's fine. He's not in any bad shape. I think Mike LaFleur. Mike LaFleur basically confirmed that Cooper Kupp is totally fine. He's not going to miss any time. He's just day-to-day. He's going to maybe miss practice a little bit, but I think Cooper Kupp is going to be ready by week 1. And I really hate that he had to get hurt, but I'm sure he's going to be ready by week 1, and he's just going to take it one day at a time, which is excellent. So, all in all for the Rams, don't expect to see Matthew Stafford on the field, and don't expect to see any of the starters. Expect to see the young guys and all the players that the Rams drafted. Probably expect to see Stetson Bennett and all the young guns that the Rams started, just because, well, for the Rams, you don't want to see any more injuries. Injuries is the last thing that the Rams do not want to see, as the Rams also released their 5 players to watch for in the preseason in week 1. So the first one is Steve Avila, offensive lineman from TCU. Now, obviously this was something the Rams lacked in last year. And this is courtesy of Stu Jackson, the senior staff writer for the Los Angeles Rams. So Steve Avila, obviously this was something that the Rams lacked in. Their offensive line was basically decimated as they kept dropping like flies, and honestly, you just hated to see it. And Matthew Stafford just kept getting picked off, and, well, not picked off, but sacked and just decimated. So it was just something no one wanted to see. And with Steve Avila, he'll be plugging up the holes that the Rams needed. So all in all for the Rams, I really hope that Steve Avila can basically help out the likes of Joe Notaboom, just to name a few, because I hope he is able to do so. I want to say he was like the second or third round pick, but regardless, Steve Avila is the top player to watch for the Rams. Then you've got Puka Nacua, wide receiver coming out of BYU. Then you've got Zach Evans, running back from Mississippi. Trey Tomlinson, a defensive back from TCU. Then you've also got Ernest Brown IV, defensive end from Northwestern. So those are all your 5 players to watch for, according to Stu Jackson of the Los Angeles Rams. Then you've also got the preseason Week 1 notebook on Sean McVay. Why do I sound like I've got a Brooklyn accent? Anyway. And then Sean McVay also talks about Joe Notaboom. Sean McVay also talked about Joe Notaboom and how he's been rotating with Alaric Johnson at left tackle throughout training camp and competing at right guard. So, again, that's been the biggest issue for the Rams. They really need to shore up their offensive line. And if they can't shore up that offensive line, Matthew Stafford is going to get decimated, and he was lucky to dodge a bullet with that injury. That could have easily been a career ender, and that would have been so horrible for the Rams, just because if that neck injury is so dangerous. Like, neck injuries are so dangerous in terms of that thing. So, remember when I said Stetson Bennett could be the starting quarterback? Well, Sean McVay is actually deciding between Brett Rypien, who is the former Denver Broncos quarterback and the journeyman, or he's either going to start Stetson Bennett. It would be quite something if the Chargers started Max Duggan and the Rams started Stetson Bennett. You know who Stetson Bennett came from? Georgia. You want to know where Stetson Bennett came from? TCU. You want to know who met in the college football championship? TCU and Georgia. With those two, Stetson Bennett and Max Duggan, being the starting quarterbacks for those teams. So I think we should see both of those two quarterbacks face one another in at least one, if not the second half. Just please make that happen, Chargers and Rams. Just script that. Please, Brandon Staley and Sean McVay. I think college football fans, if not Rams and Chargers fans, would love to see that happen. Maybe Georgia and TCU fans. But Sean McVay says he's still working through whether Stetson Bennett or Brett Rypien should start quarterback on Saturday. Which, I guess that's understandable, but still. You kind of want to give some young reps to the young guy in Stetson Bennett, just because you kind of threw your draft pick at him, which I kind of don't understand. Isn't he like 20, in his high 20s? So you might want to give him some reps. And the dude did guide Georgia to a national championship. Back-to-back championships, for that matter, as well. So, all in all, for me, I wouldn't mind. Honestly, I'm not a Rams fan. I'm pro-Chargers. But, for me, I'm in the minority of seeing Stetson Bennett at starting quarterback. But, to each his own. Maybe Rams fans just want to see Brett Rypien. But, who's to say? Again, for me, preseason is not all that significant. It's just it's the young guys and the hopefuls, the player hopefuls, trying to impress the coaches and coaching staff to make the 53-man roster. Otherwise, they'll have to basically be on the practice squad, or they'll have to find a new team, or basically they'll just have to hit free agency. So, overall, yeah, I think for the Rams and Chargers, don't expect anything too much. Just expect all of the, I wouldn't say bench warmers, but all the young guys, all of the player hopefuls to basically fight for a roster spot. And also, if for some weird reason we get to see some starters, expect them to be on like a minimum snap count, just so they're not like packing up rust for week 1. The Chargers will open up week 1 at home against the Miami Dolphins, while the Rams hit the road to Seattle to take on the Seattle Seahawks. That's not until week 1, though. But for the Rams and Chargers, they face one another this week, and that's all that matters. And all in all, for both teams, I think this is going to be an interesting first week just because I want to see how both of these teams work their young guys and work their reserve quarterback. So I'm excited to see what comes out of this preseason game. Even though, again, I'm not a big preseason guy, I just like it just because we get football and whatnot. So we'll see what happens. But all in all, that is basically it for the NFL, and I really can't wait to see what happens come tomorrow. I'm going to try to watch that game. I don't think I'm even doing anything tomorrow, so I can't wait. Alright, but that's going to do it for the NFL portion of the show. So let's jump on over to some MLS with some more football, as LAFC is still in the Leagues Cup tournament, as they really... Remember how I was actually very cautious about them playing Real Salt Lake in the round of 16 after they laid the wood down on Juarez? Well, Real Salt Lake, as we all know, they beat... Oh, I'm blanking on the team that Lyon. They beat Lyon 3-1. So I didn't even know the final score, but I just knew that Real Salt Lake was going to be their opponent. But Real Salt Lake beat Lyon 3-1 in their round of 32 match. Now, this was kind of a surprise just because I didn't think Lyon was going to lose, just because they won the CONCACAF tournament, and when you win that tournament, I feel, and you beat LAFC twice, I feel your team is much better than what people give them credit for. But I guess Real Salt Lake has improved so drastically that they just had it in them. And keep in mind that this matchup between Lyon and Real Salt Lake was actually in America First Field in Sandy, Utah. So Real Salt Lake actually had the home court advantage or home field advantage, and they managed to beat Lyon 3-1. So LAFC managed to find out its next opponent in Real Salt Lake. And surprisingly, it was actually a tight battle in the first half. The two teams battled to a 0-0 draw in the first half. But then the second half came, and let's just say LAFC turned on the gas as Dennis Bouanga scored back-to-back goals in the 52nd and 56th minute to give LAFC a 2-0 lead. Then in the 62nd minute, 6 minutes after Bouanga's second goal, Nathan Ordaz scored to put LAFC up 3-0. So through 51 minutes, LAFC looked like they weren't going to score and they were going to have to decide this one in penalty kicks. But then LAFC needed only 11 minutes to put 3 goals on the board, and suddenly Real Salt Lake was just outmatched. Then LAFC added an insurance goal, though I don't think they needed another one, as Filip Yarov Krastev, forgive me if I butchered that name, added one more goal in the 84th minute to put LAFC up 4-0, and they basically just poured it on Real Salt Lake as, man, they just gave them a whooping. I didn't think it would be this bad, but man, that's just, what a beatdown. Anyway, so LAFC advances to the quarterfinals of the Leagues Cup tournament as they take on, let me see if I'm pronouncing this right, Monterrey. So Monterrey defeated Tigres in the round of 16, 1-0, and they also beat the Portland Timbers 1-0 in the round of 32. So for LAFC, can't really gauge on how good Monterrey is, but I will say this, LAFC just has to keep their guard up. I really think that LAFC is looking real good to possibly go deep in this tournament. The question is, and this is still another recurring question, how much soccer is too much soccer when it comes to this tournament? Just because in 9 days following this recording, they actually return to MLS play as they return home back to BMO Stadium when they play the Colorado Rapids. Now, obviously, it's just the Rapids. And if I recall correctly, Colorado is the worst team in the league, or the second worst team in the league behind Miami, which Miami is, even though they're the worst team, they're still entertaining with Lionel Messi. But for Colorado, they're the worst team in the conference, and they're tied for the worst team in the league. If not, they are the third worst team in the league. But regardless, I don't think LAFC should worry too much about the Rapids, but they just can't underestimate them. Charlotte, on the other hand, could be a little bit more of a challenge, even though they're 12th in the Eastern Conference. But for LAFC, my only concern is they're playing so much soccer, they could be fatigued by the time they head back into MLS Cup play. Whereas Colorado, they haven't even touched a soccer ball since heaven knows when. Which, yeah, it was back in group stage play, which was the end of July. Which they've got beat by Nashville and Toluca. So, yeah, the Colorado's getting all this time off while LAFC is still playing, which is not bad. I mean, Colorado is getting their rest and relaxation, but it could also lead to rust. Well, LAFC, they're still playing and they're still keeping themselves fresh just so they're not getting rusty. So there could be the rust versus rest factor. There could also be the too much play time and not enough rest factor. So it all depends on when the League's Cup final is, and it all depends on when LAFC wins or loses their next match. But right now, the focus for LAFC is, well, tonight at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, when LAFC hosts Monterrey in what is supposed to be a big matchup. And I really am excited for this matchup against Monterrey. And it's actually going to be played in the Rose Bowl, so it's not going to be played at BMO Stadium. So my apologies. I was looking at their Colorado matchup. So the LAFC Monterrey matchup is actually going to be played in the Rose Bowl. So that's pretty cool. It's being played at the Rose Bowl and not at BMO Stadium. So that's actually a little bit fair, if you ask me, just because you don't want to give home field advantage or that much home field advantage to one team, even though Lyon kind of had to deal with that when they played Real Salt Lake. But I guess that's kind of like, maybe they're in the round of the quarterfinals where they could afford to have, like, where it's now neutral sites instead of just like where it's just now home sites. So I'm looking at this LAFC matchup, and yeah, it was played at BMO Stadium. So, or maybe BMO Stadium is being rented out by Angel City and whatnot. So, but then again, I don't think Angel City is playing, which would actually be good transition. But then again, the semifinals of the NWSL Cup are September 6th. And group stage play just ended, so yeah. Yeah, group stage play just ended, so this is interesting if you ask me. Anyway, so that's pretty much that for LAFC. The Galaxy don't have another match until they return to action when the League's Cup ends. As the Galaxy also play on Sunday, they will host the Real Salt Lake at Dignity Health Sports Park the same time and day that LAFC hosts Colorado. Angela puts in the chat room, I forgot Colorado still had a team. Oops. Oh, man. Oh, that's cold, Angela. And Mike Pat pops in the chat room. He says, Teran, have a great show, sir. Thanks, Mike. Oh, but that's cold, Angela. You forgot that Colorado had a team. Well, I mean, in your defense, Colorado is kind of one of the worst teams in the league. They're the worst team in the West. So, in your defense, Angela, I don't really blame you for forgetting that Colorado had a team. And with the rise of the Denver Nuggets and how they won the NBA championship and how the Denver Broncos are gearing up for a big season, hopefully not against the Chargers, though. And then The Rockies, they still suck. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Rockies fans. I should have said that. I'm sorry. I'm just having fun. What else is enough? I mean, Mile High. I mean, if you hear Aaron Yelwell's show, Mile High Musings, he'll give you all that you need to know about Denver sports. Mile High Musings goes live at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. But, yeah, I don't blame you for accidentally forgetting that the Colorado Rapids were a soccer team. So, yeah. Don't worry about it, Angela. I forgive you. It's all good. But just to close up the MLS portion, good luck to LAFC. We're looking forward to seeing what you could do against Monterrey. Let's show them who's boss and bring home. Let's see you all in the League's Cup semifinals. I really want to see what is in store for you all next week because we all want to see you all in the semifinals. I mean, I'm pro LA Galaxy for the most part, but I don't mind seeing LAFC have success. I was so happy when LAFC won the MLS Cup, although it could have been won a little bit of a less dramatic way against the Philadelphia Union. But honestly, yeah. And Angela says, what's in Colorado? Nothing but mountains. Yeah, nothing but mountains and snow. Yes, exactly, Angela. That's a good point right there. All right, but that's enough for the MLS portion. Basically, LAFC is still in action until they lose in the League's Cup. So to NWSL action, it looks like group stage play is done as the NWSL Challenge Cup is basically reaching its climax as OL Reign and Louisville are in the NWSL Cup semifinals, while Kansas City and North Carolina are in the semifinals, or the other semifinal of the NWSL Challenge Cup, which means I don't need to talk about Angel City and San Diego Wave FC. I will say this about Angel City. They still have not lost a match, which includes group stage play. They've not lost a match ever since firing Freya Coombe, as their most recent match, which was a group stage match play against the Wave FC, resulted in a 1-1 draw. Jaden Shaw had the first goal for Wave FC as San Diego took the 1-0 lead. But 5 minutes after that, Scarlett Camberos scored the equalizer for Angel City, and that was pretty much it, as Angel City and Wave FC didn't have any more goals, and that was that, as there were just missed attempts and saves, as there was even 9 minutes of stoppage time. So sadly, Angel City didn't get the win, but hey, they didn't lose. So they still have not lost a match ever since firing Freya Coombe, which was all the way back on June 10th. So Angel City, believe it or not, has not lost a match in over 2 months, which that's including group stage play. I know the NWSL Cup does not count toward the record toward NWSL records, but hey, that's still pretty good. Angel City has not lost a match ever since firing Freya Coombe, and I really don't want to say that Freya Coombe was the problem, but I guess Angel City just made the correct executive decision. So Angel City knew something that we didn't, and I feel horrible for Freya Coombe, but she'll land on her feet somehow, some way. Coincidentally for Wave FC, they have not won a match since, what? Their last win came back in June when they beat Gotham back on June 4th. So they have not won a match in over 2 months. So you have Angel City, who has not lost a match in over 2 months, and then you have Wave FC, who has not won a match in over 2 months. So this is kind of an interesting flip-flop, because the funny thing is that Wave FC is actually higher in the NWSL standings. But you also have to remember that Angel City started off really slow. They had a litany of injuries, and they were basically a walking injured reserve, which is very sad if you ask me. And then Wave FC has just had a slew of bad luck, which has resulted in either ties or losses, which they really have to get their you-know-what together. So for Wave FC, their next matchup is not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. So it's next Saturday. They return to Snapdragon Stadium to take on Gotham. Again, winning at Snapdragon Stadium is kind of been their house of horrors. Winning at home has been a chore for Wave FC. And if this continues to happen, the playoffs might not be able to feature them, which sucks because, believe it or not, the NWSL Finals is actually going to be at Snapdragon Stadium. It would be quite funny if Wave FC actually manages to make the final and then they get a home final championship. But they have to actually make the final first instead of just coasting through their matches. And currently they're in 6th place. So if the playoffs start today, they would make the playoffs, but they would be on the road throughout the entirety of the playoffs, which is no bueno. Now, they could have already gotten their bad losses out of the way, but I will also say this. If they keep playing the way that they are, they won't last a second in the playoffs because they will play Gotham, which, ironically enough, that's their next opponent. That could be a possible playoff preview, but there is something that does benefit from playing on the road, is that Wave FC actually is a pretty good road team, and I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is when it comes to Wave FC playing on the road, but they play so much better on the road as opposed to playing at home at Snapdragon Stadium. I just don't get it. But maybe it's just a motivational thing. Maybe they just are more motivated when playing on the road, whereas when they play at home, they get too overconfident and whatnot. I don't know. But for Wave FC, it looks like they'll have the next week. They'll have next week off, and then they'll have a few more days to prepare for Gotham. Gotham is currently 3rd in the NWSL standings, so... And honestly, Wave FC is only 5 points back of first place via the North Carolina Courage, and they're only 4 points back of Gotham. So, in all honesty, a win could really rocket Wave FC back into a better playoff position, as they have 21 points, and they're 3 points back of Washington and OL Reign. So, we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, for Angel City, they are back in action same day as Wave FC, as they'll be hitting the road to Louisville to take on, I want to get this team, Racing Louisville FC. Talk about a mouthful. Racing Louisville FC. Anyway, so, like I said, Angel City FC has not lost a match in over 2 months, if you're including group stage play. Now is kind of the interesting thing for Angel City. Can you actually win on the road despite all that's happened? With all the injuries that happened, with the firing of your head coach, with everything that's been going on with your program, can you win on the road? Can you build off this momentum? Can you basically climb the mountain of momentum and get back into playoff contention? Just because Angel City is 4 points back of the final playoff spot. They're only 4 points back of Wave FC for the last playoff spot in the NWSL, which I think is rather impressive just because Angel City was one of the worst teams and they were one of the most banged up teams. And now they have not lost a match in over 2 months. And they've even had some impressive wins to boot. Even in non-group stage play. They beat North Carolina before group stage play, or before the NWSL break, which they beat them on July 9th, which I know was at home, but that's still an impressive win, beating North Carolina, who is currently leading the NWSL. And then the day after they fired Freya Coombe, Angel City beat San Diego Wave FC on the road 2-1, which was downright impressive. So for Angel City, they've been rising above adversity, and they've been rising above everything that's been thrown their way. So Angel City could be the team of destiny. However, now comes the second half of their season. And this is kind of going to be where they have to rise more above adversity. They've got 7 games remaining on their slate, and if they could basically continue to play the way that they've been playing, they also get Alyssa Thompson back just because the U.S. women's national team had an early exit in the World Cup. Yeah, disappointing one. I guess I should also mention that, is Alex Morgan still on the U.S. women's national team? If she is, then Alex Morgan is coming back to Wave FC as well. So that's kind of a big bonus for Wave FC too. But Alyssa Thompson is coming back for Angel City FC. So all in all, for Angel City, they're going to be getting a big boost in terms of her return. They'll also be getting other players back. They should be getting other players back now that they have the NWSL break following their dismissal from the NWSL Cup. So all in all, for Angel City FC, they could be getting more and more dangerous by the day. And I look forward to seeing what they can do. And I hope they can maybe have a deep run. I really think that they could turn it around in the second half. It's just all about them winning their games that truly matter the most. Just because they've won with an interim coach, which I think is impressive. And my next question is for Angel City. Do they name this interim coach their new head coach of their team? That's what I want to know. Like, does Angel City just name their interim coach, who I am embarrassed to actually even say this. I don't know who their interim coach's name is, just because they've had a lot of. I haven't been ultimately following their team all that much, but I have been following the scores and whatnot in the matches. I will just say this: it's just been impressive that Angel City has just been risen. Again, they've risen above the whatchamacallit. That they've risen above the adversity, and they're kind of like that little engine that could. They thought that they couldn't, but now that they can't, that now they're saying they think they can, and it's rather good. So I really want to see who their current coach is at the moment, as I don't even know who their head coach is. It's no longer Freya Coombe, so don't even tell me it's Freya Coombe. So yeah, I'm not even gonna. Okay, I'm not even gonna bother. I can't even bother who their head coach is, or their manager is. But all in all, for Angel City, I'm rather impressed by them, and I really think that they could be the team of destiny. So we'll see what happens. But that is going to do it for the NWSL portion of the show, as Becky Tweed is their interim coach. So Becky Tweed is their interim coach's name. So my question is, do you replace Becky Tweed do you take away the interim tag and you put the head coach tag on it, or do you just go and search for a head coach after the season is done? Or do you just keep Becky Tweed as an assistant coach, and then you just find a head coach at the time, and then if you don't find a head coach, you just give Becky Tweed the head coaching position after all the interviews are done? Just food for thought, in my opinion, because when the firing happened, they were 2-6-3, and they were 11th place in the NWSL. So the fact that Angel City has turned it around is quite impressive. So we'll see what happens. All right, but that is going to do it for Angel City and the entire NWSL portion of the show. We will take ourselves a quick commercial break. When we come back, we've got some MLB to recap. We've got some WNBA to discuss as well. And we've also got some big W awards to hand out. And we've got some Dum-Dum of the Weeks to hand out. Keep it locked here. You are listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Well, what is up, Carolina Nation? This is John Felipe of the Carolina Cast, of course, the podcast of, by, and for the Carolinas, right here on IE Sports, your direct feed for all that is sports. And I'm reminding you to tune in Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern for the latest in Carolina sports, whether it's the Panthers that keep on pounding, the fly natures of the Hornets, the storming Hurricanes, the battle of the Blues with Duke and UNC, the fight of the Clemson Tigers, or the amazing atmosphere of any Carolina college. I'm talking App State, I'm talking ECU. I've got you covered. Once again, tune in for the Carolina Cast with me, John Felipe, Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right. Welcome to AZ Sports Daily. I'm your host, Kieran Daly, bringing the heat to Arizona sports. There's no discrimination here. We're going to talk about every sports team, professional and college. The show is all about you, the listener. I'm here to entertain you. Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here? It's going to be fun, high energy. You may not agree with what I say. That's okay. Let me hear you. Let's talk about it. Join me every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on AZ Sports Daily. That's AZ Sports, Daily, and at IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, sports fans? You're listening to IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your favorite West Coast Wisconsinite, Bernie Bango, and if you're a cheesehead, come listen to my show, Big Cheese Sports, where we road trip around America's Dairyland, previewing, reviewing, predicting, debating, and digging into all that is Wisconsin sports at the college and pro levels. Join me on IE Sports Radio, Sundays at 1 p.m. Central Standard. Bernie out.
What up, Boston sports fans? This is Mikey Two Guns here, your host of Our Bleepin' City, airing every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 p.m. right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Please join me. We'll talk everything Boston sports, all the local teams, college teams. I'm even down to talk MMA, boxing, whatever you guys want. So join me every Wednesday night, 7 to 8 p.m. Chime in with your questions on the chat, tweet the show. We'll even have call-ins. I can't wait to hear from you guys. This is going to be a lot of fun. So once again, it's Our Bleepin' City. I am your host, Mikey Two Guns, every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 p.m. right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. See you soon, people.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Whine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Sorry, doing so many shows in so little time. We've even got another show going on tomorrow. I've got 3 and Out College Edition with the man, the myth, the legend, Larry B. But definitely check out all of our amazing shows, such as Let's Whine About DMV Sports with Mike Pat, which talks all things DMV sports in the Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia area, while Mike Pat enjoys a glass of wine or beer, depending on what his mood is. Also check out Our Bleepin' City with Mikey Two Guns, who was in the chat room earlier. He talks all things Boston sports. Big Cheese Sports talks all things Wisconsin sports. Big Cheese Sports goes on every Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 1 p.m. Central. Our Bleepin' City goes live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Kieran Daily Show, AZ Sports Daily, goes live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. And then Carolina Cast is slated to go live tonight at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. He talks all things Carolina sports, while Kieran Daily Show, AZ Sports Daily, talks all things Arizona sports. So definitely check out all of our amazing shows on IE Sports Radio. We should be up to 32 shows, as my math basically was what told me otherwise from previously when I added up all of the shows before I went live. But regardless, let's get on into the second half of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, as we have the MLB to discuss. And for the Angels, they had such a horrible week in the MLB last weekend. Remember how I told y'all that they needed to have a crucial weekend in beating the Mariners? Well, that first game against the Mariners where they gave up the go-ahead grand slam, well, it was followed up with another hideous loss, as they lost 9-7 against the Mariners last Friday, where it was tied 7-7 going into the top of the 8th inning. They gave up 1 run, and then they gave up an insurance run in the top of the 9th inning. Gave up 14 hits overall, as that was just straight up unacceptable. And it sucks because the Angels actually had to made a great comeback. They had to come back twice. They came back from 5-2 down and 7-5 down, and they straight up just pooped the bed. And then last Saturday, they wound up losing 3-2, which, they were down 2-1 throughout most of the game. They just never led, and they almost made a comeback, but almost never really cuts it. It never, ever cuts it, as sadly, the Mariners just had the upper hand in this one. And then the Angels lost to the Mariners in 10 innings on Sunday, losing 3-2, as Eugenio Suarez delivered in the 10th inning, while the Angels just could not get anything going, as even with the second base rule or the extra inning rule, the Angels just could not win, which is absolutely disappointing, as Jaime Barria took the L for the Angels. Just thought I'd throw that out there. All in all, for the Angels, it was just horrible. I'm not mad that the Angels lost. I'm mad that they got swept by the Mariners, which the Mariners are a team that are basically fighting for the wild card spot. I'll give the Mariners credit, and I will just say this. I am eating my crow, and I'm hoping not to eat my crow, because I basically said on the last week's show that the Mariners are not going to make the playoffs, and I hope not to eat my crow. Angels are not doing me justice by saying that, so thanks a lot, Angels. Worthless punks. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't say that. The darn team can't do anything right. Wasting away Shohei Ohtani's and Mike Trout's career. Anyway, for the Angels, it's just a bad series overall. And that go-ahead grand slam back last Thursday when all they needed was just 2 outs was kind of the tip of the iceberg. So they just needed at least 1 win. And now the Angels just had a slippery slope, and this just goes back to what I said, that the Angels were just beating up on the lowly Tigers and Pirates, and then they got humbled against the Atlanta Braves and the Toronto Blue Jays, where they just could not take down those teams. And then against the San Francisco Giants, it looked like it was going to be the same thing as Monday. They had another bullpen blunder as the Angels were up 3-2 in the top of the 9th, and then the Giants scored 6 runs in the top of the 9th, and wound up winning 8-3. Absolutely disappointing, and the Angels wound up losing their 7th straight. So you remember that the Angels went all in at the deadline because they want to be contenders. It looked like the Angels didn't go all in enough, just because, honestly, if you ask me, I think they could have done a whole lot more. But in my opinion, the Angels really just pooped the bed in that one. They really could have gotten more closers, better pitching, and all that sort of stuff. But I just feel that the Angels kind of left a lot of meat on the bone in terms of going all in. And now they just have not looked ultimately good. And that was what I was thinking during that 7-game losing streak. But then the Angels kind of rode the ship a little bit better as they beat the Giants on Tuesday 7-5, which is kind of surprising because the Giants are actually pretty good, and they're kind of fighting for a possible NL West championship or a possible spot in the NL West wild card. And then the Angels won the rubber match against the Giants, winning 4-1, which is good. So the Angels had yesterday off, as the Angels have a 3-game series on the road against the Houston Astros, starting today at 5:10 p.m., and then that ends on Sunday. So it's another series against a actually good team. So the Angels series are actually really ramping up against really good teams. The Angels are not going to get a break against a good team until they play the Mets. I bypassed the Reds just because they're also in playoff contention, and the Phillies are really looking good as well. So all in all, for the Angels, they're really going to have to step their game up. If the Angels want to prove that they're a playoff team, they have to actually start beating up on the teams that are good and playoff contention worthy. And then after the Angels play the Astros, the Angels will still remain in the Lone Star State as they will head from Houston to the DFW to take on the Texas Rangers in a 3-game series on Monday all the way through Wednesday, all of which will be at 5:05 p.m. Pacific time. And then next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the Angels will head back to the Big A to take on the Tampa Bay Rays, which, again, that's another playoff contender and the leader of the wild card spot, as they have the top wild card spot, while the Astros have, I want to say, the second wild card spot. Yes, the second wild card spot. They're 1.5 ahead of the second wild card spot in the American League. So if the Angels want to prove they're a wild card team, because I really can't see them winning the American League, the Angels are going to actually have to get some wins, and that does not include splitting 4-game series. That does not count. I mean, it's okay, but breaking even does not really entail you're a playoff team. It just means you got fortunate that you did not lose. Because if they played the way that they played against the Mariners or the Braves or the Blue Jays, the Angels will not be in the playoffs. They're 58-58, and they just cannot play the Tigers or the Pirates or sub-500 teams every single night. They actually have to play actually good teams. When you look at the teams like the Dodgers, they actually get the job done, which is actually perfect transition to go into the Dodgers. As the Dodgers last weekend, they had a crucial series against their inner division rival, the San Diego Padres. They had a 4-game series which went from Friday all the way through Monday. So last Friday, they actually took down the Padres 10-5, which that's actually good considering, if you remember, they actually had they were coming off of a 3-game sweep over the Oakland A's, which they could have had their little comatose. But for the Dodgers, I was very impressed that they went on the road and they beat the Padres. Now, the second game was kind of not so... They kind of did not go their way. Well, I guess I should say that the first game, the Dodgers kind of blew it open in the 8th and 9th inning, as it was close. The Dodgers were only up, or actually they were down 3-2 going into the 8th inning, and then they scored 5 runs in the 8th inning, and then they scored 3 more runs in the 9th inning, and the Dodgers managed to win. Now, unfortunately, the Dodgers, like I said, they were not so fortunate in game number 2, as they actually led 3-1 going into the bottom of the 8th inning. All they just needed was 6 more outs, and then the Padres erupted as they scored 7 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning, as the Padres managed to take that match, or they managed to take that game by a score of 8-3. So that's a good win for the Padres. Because the next game, it did not go the way the Padres wanted, as this was actually played on national TV, Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, and it basically went the Dodgers' way. The Dodgers managed to stomp, well, I wouldn't say stomp, but they blew it open early in the game, as they beat the Padres 8-2. The first 2 innings, the Dodgers scored a combined 6 runs. All the Padres could do is literally play catch-up, as Lance Lynn actually got the win. That has a nice ring. Lance Lynn for the win. I want to say that was Lance Lynn's second or first win. Regardless, Lance Lynn got a good win over a solid team. And the Padres aren't really the greatest team, but hey, a win is a win. A win is a win against a team that is fighting for a spot in the playoffs, and I am impressed by it. So good job to Lance Lynn for getting the win, and good job to the Dodgers. It's unfortunate for the Padres that the bats were just so silent in this series for them, for the most part, outside of that second game. So the last game was actually played on a Monday, and oh my goodness. The Dodgers, they managed to win that one 13-7, as, believe it or not, the San Diego Padres actually jumped out to a 5-0 lead. Now, if you're thinking San Diego jumped out to a 5-0 lead, you're probably thinking, okay, the Dodgers probably lost this one. Nope. The Dodgers actually managed to score 8 runs in the 4th inning, which included a grand slam by Mookie Betts, which you're probably wondering who might be the NL MVP at this point, or the ML MVP altogether. So, yeah. And also the Dodgers scored 5 more runs in the 6th inning. So altogether, the Dodgers managed to basically blow it open following a sluggish start, as Tony Gonsolin got the win. And for the Padres, it just was not their series. And it sucks because I think the Padres could have definitely used at least a split. A split for their sake could have been better. But unfortunately for them, they just ran into a Dodgers team. For the Dodgers, I'll say this. For not doing a whole lot at the trade deadline, they looked pretty good. Especially getting Lance Lynn. Maybe Lance Lynn just needed a change of scenery. So good job to the Dodgers. As the Dodgers actually followed up their 3 out of 4 win over the Padres with a 2-game sweep over the Arizona Diamondbacks on the road, as they took both games 5-4 and 2-0. So the Dodgers, it was kind of a rocky ride, as they actually wound up building a 4-0 lead, nearly got cut in half, or it nearly got cut down to size, as they actually got out hit 10-9, but because the Diamondbacks have kind of been in a little bit of a free-fall mode, unfortunately, it just hasn't really been the Diamondbacks' day, as the Diamondbacks wound up losing that one. They just could not find that final game tying run in the 9th inning. So that was basically that. That was in game 1. And then in game 2, the Dodgers, I want to say that was the game where Kershaw came back. It was one of them. It wasn't. But either way, the Dodgers managed to beat the Diamondbacks 2-0 as they held only 4 hits, which is pretty good. As their runs did not come until the top of the 8th inning, as it was Peralta who had a 2-run RBI single, which brought home Freddie Freeman and Will Smith. So it was that was pretty impressive right there, as David Peralta was the one that brought those players home. So believe it or not, that loss actually knocked the Diamondbacks back to back to under 500. And there is one fun fact about that, which I wouldn't say is a good fun fact, which is kind of not a fun fact for fans, for like Cardinals fans, but the Diamondbacks are. Oh, here it is. This is from @Storms Lab. It's a Diamondbacks fan. But he says the Diamondbacks are now below 500 for the first time since April 6th. At one point, they had playoff odds near 80%. Now they're under 20%. An unbelievable collapse for a team that once had comfortable control of the NL West. And this also came from Bob Nightingale. He said, what a difference 7 weeks makes. June 18th, the Dodgers were in 3rd place in the NL West, 4.5 games behind the Arizona Diamondbacks. August 9th, the Dodgers sweep the Diamondbacks 2-0 and lead the NL West by 6 games over the San Francisco Giants and 11 games over the Diamondbacks. Magic number 43. Thanks for the magic number count, buddy. That's a little too early to have a magic number count, in my opinion, Bob. That's why I don't like Bob Nightingale that much. Not really reliable, in my opinion. Anyway, but those are some interesting facts and nuggets right there. But, yeah, that's quite interesting if you ask me. So, poor Diamondbacks. I know this is talking about SoCal, but yeah, Diamondbacks were in firm control of first place, and it was looking like the Diamondbacks were going to make the playoffs. Now they're, like I said, they're in freefall mode, and they're in danger of missing the playoffs. It's even gotten to the point where the Diamondbacks are nearing the same record as the Padres. So we'll see what happens, but poor Diamondbacks. So anyway, back to the Dodgers. They actually had kicked off a 4-game series at home against the Colorado Rockies, where they narrowly won 2-1. I guess kind of the jet lag kind of haunted the Dodgers, but it is what it is. This was the game where Clayton Kershaw returned, as he actually managed to get a no decision in a return. But he didn't get the win, unfortunately, but he got a no decision. But he did make his return, which was very, very nice. As, believe it or not, the Dodgers actually won via a walk-off with the bases loaded. So, oops. Sorry, Rockies. That's just been how the Rocky season has gone. It sucks, but it is what it is. And that so-called go-ahead walk-off came in the bottom of the 8th inning, as the Rockies were actually held to only 4 hits. Dodgers were held to only 5 hits, which is surprising, as Ryan Yarbrough got the win, which, you know, I mean, you could make the argument it could have gone to Kershaw, but it is what it is. Bruce Graterol got the save. I guess I should make note of that. As the Dodgers continue their 4-game series against the Rockies tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday, then the Dodgers will have Monday off before welcoming in the Milwaukee Brewers on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the Dodgers welcome in the Miami Marlins, which those are two better teams than the Rockies. I'll give them that much. And I don't know about the Marlins. They're kind of in free fall mode, but they're not. They're also vying for a playoff spot. And then the Brewers are also vying for a division title. So we'll see what happens. So now it's San Diego, which has the worst record of the three SoCal teams. So we already talked about the 4-game series. So let's just move on from that to the Mariners series. Well, the Mariners, I'll just say this. They've been playing some good baseball, and it does not help. For the Padres' sake, it does not help that the Mariners got a big boost from the Angels. As try as the Padres did, but they were no match for the Mariners in Game 1 on Tuesday, as they wound up as the Mariners wound up beating the Padres 2-0. The Padres only had 3 hits on the night, and the Mariners only needed 2 runs. Big ouch right there. And then on Wednesday, the Padres wound up losing to the Mariners 6-1. It was actually quite close, as it was 1-1 going into the bottom of the 8th. Unfortunately, the Padres decided to go full Angels and have a bullpen meltdown as they gave up 5 runs in the 8th, which is completely garbage. So, again, I will say this. The Mariners are playing some darn good baseball. They might actually have the longest winning streak in the MLB currently. Yeah, they do. The Mariners actually have the longest winning streak in the MLB, as their win streak is at 7, while the Dodgers is surprisingly at 5. The Dodgers have the longest win streak in the National League, but the Mariners have the longest win streak in the league altogether. So I'll give the Mariners the benefit of the doubt. They're playing good baseball, but I just don't want to see them in the playoffs just because, honestly, their fans were photoshopping Shohei Ohtani in a Mariners jersey, and one of my friends, or a follower of mine, did put a Shohei Ohtani jersey. He put Ohtani in the number 17 on a Seattle Seahawks jersey, and then I replied to him saying, the new quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. I hope I didn't ruffle his feathers, but I digress. Anyway, so for the Padres, they're back in action tonight against the Arizona Diamondbacks. I mean, if the Padres are going to pounce on a win, they're going to do so now. They should do so now against the Diamondbacks, just because Arizona is kind of in a free-fall mode. The Padres have been in free-fall mode pretty much the entire season. Outside of the Colorado Rockies, the Padres have really just not been up to snuff. And the Diamondbacks have just been so ice cold, and they're just taking a nosedive. So the Padres really have to strike while the iron's hot. Or in this case, cold, because they're playing in Arizona. Then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the Padres are back home at Petco Park to take on the Baltimore Orioles. Then next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the Padres will face the Diamondbacks again, but this time it'll be at Petco Park. So no rest for the wicked, as the Padres basically will not have had a day off since yesterday. So we'll see what happens for the Padres, as believe it or not, the Padres are still in playoff contention for the wild card. Like, let's just be honest, they're not going to get the NL West. That ship has kind of sailed, because they're behind the Diamondbacks and the Giants, let alone the Dodgers. So wild card is basically wild card or bust for the Padres, as the Padres are 4.5 games back of the final wild card spot. Angels are 6.5. So realistically, the Padres could get into the playoffs. It's just that the National League wild card is so jammed, as you've got lots of teams vying for the wild card, or at least the final one, with Miami, the Cubs, the Reds, and the Diamondbacks all ahead of the Padres. And then for the Angels, the final wild card spot race consists of the Blue Jays, the Mariners, the Red Sox, and the Yankees. Then you also have the Angels, but right behind the Angels is the Guardians, which they're only 2 games back of the Angels. So if I'm the Angels, you really got to win your matches here and now, because if you don't deserve to be in that playoff contention. So we'll see what happens for the Angels and Padres. For me, I just think the Dodgers are in real good shape of making the playoffs, as it would take a major collapse for them to relinquish that National League wildcard lead, or National League West, NL West lead, which honestly, I'd be shocked if they gave that up to the Giants. If they give that up to the Giants, I'd be disappointed in the Dodgers. They may have to relocate back to Brooklyn. But I digress. Alright, but that's that for the MLB. I know it took a little bit longer, but I wanted to get more into detail, as we've got the WNBA to go over. So, good news for the Sparks. They're not as bad of a team as most people thought they were, as they actually have had some pretty solid wins. As I know they just, last time we talked about them, they beat the Indiana Fever, but they haven't had too much luck against the New York Liberty, as they lost to them twice. Last Friday, they took on the Washington Mystics, and they lost to said Mystics team by 2, 79-77, which was downright saddening, as leading the way was Azura Stevens, who had 19 points. So Nneka Ogwumike had 18 points, and she also had 8 boards. Danica Hammy added 14 points off the bench, and Zia Cook added 10 points off the bench. Unfortunately, it was not enough, as basically Washington was just the better team on the road, and this basically basically best described the Sparks season. The good news is the Sparks got a little bit of payback, as they managed to beat the Mystics last Sunday, 91-83, as believe it or not, there was actually a scuffle between the Sparks and the Mystics, as 2 players got ejected, which, ooh boy, that's crazy. I haven't seen a scuffle involving the Sparks ever since the Malice at the Palace 2.0, and that was all the way back in, let's say, I think it was 2008, 2009, because I remember Malice at the Palace, and it's funny because it was between the Detroit Shock back when they had a team and the Los Angeles Sparks, and that was when I think Joe Dumars was the head coach of the Shock, fittingly enough, because he was part of the Bad Boy Pistons. So anyway, there was a scuffle, but that's not important. What was important was that Nneka Ogwumike led the Sparks with 20 points, and then Jaden Canada added 15 points. Azura Stevens chipped in 17 points, which was quite impressive. Carly Samuelson bounced back from that sluggish game that she had and added 13 points, which included 3 3-pointers. Zia Cook added 10 points off the bench. So a good job to the Sparks, as they cracked double digits with that win. They also backed that win up with an 87-80 win over the Indiana Fever on the road last Tuesday. So that's 2 wins in a row for the Sparks, even though Indiana is probably one of the worst teams in the league. Anyway, Nneka Ogwumike had a double-double, as she had 20 points and 11 boards, which was very good, if you ask me. They also got 17 points from Lashia Clarendon, and they got 13 points from Carly Samuelson and 10 points from Jaden Canada. No player cracked double digits off the bench, and they almost got 10-plus points from Azura Stevens, but she fell short, as she only got 8 points. So the Sparks are 11-18, which is good. I mean, they're improving, but they're still kind of the walking funeral home, in my honest opinion, as they're still 1.5 games back of that final playoff spot, as the Liberty actually clinched a playoff spot. So the Sparks better get their tushies in gear, otherwise the playoffs aren't going to include them. The Sparks are back in action when they host the Atlanta Dream this Saturday at 4:30 p.m., And then they actually have quite a number of days off, as their next game after that won't be until the following Saturday when they hit the road to Sin City to take on the Las Vegas Aces. That'll actually be nationally televised on ABC. So, pretty good there. I will say this. The Sparks, after they face the Aces, they've got the Mercury, they've got the Dream. The Dream is actually trending, they're borderline of 500, and they're borderline of 500. They're one game above 500. After they face the Dream on August 25th, they've got the Connecticut Sun, and they've got the Chicago Sky on August 29th, which is a huge game. Then the Seattle Storm, that's a gut check game if they want to make the playoffs. Then the Mystics, then the Sun, then the Liberty, then the Storm. So if the Sparks want to make the playoffs, they kind of got to start winning the games that truly matter. Because if they don't, like I said, the Sparks will miss the playoffs yet again. So I hope they're able to basically, get it together. Because you can't play the Indiana Fever every single night. You actually have to play some of the other teams in the league. So we'll see what happens for the Sparks going forward. But they're still kind of the walking funeral home going forward. All right, but that is that for the Sparks portion of this show. Before we head on into Dumb Dumb of the Week, which is what everyone wants to see, I actually have to give out the Big W Award. And oh my goodness, I actually forgot who I was gonna give my Big W Award to, but I actually do want to give Big W Award to my the people in the chat room first and foremost. I don't think I give a whole lot of credit to the chat room a whole lot as much as I do, just because they're the people that take time out of their day to basically say hi or to listen in and give their opinion on what they think about what I talk about. So I have to give my first Big W Award to the people in the chat room and basically tell them thank you for tuning in to either Set Point or the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Based not just this week, but for weeks past. And I definitely do appreciate you for doing so. So you get the first Big W Award and whatnot. And I really do appreciate your kindness and for taking time out of your day. And I'm just blanking on the other Big W Award I want to give out to, but it's probably going to come to me, and it'll probably come to me like next week, and I feel horrible for not writing it down. But regardless, that's pretty much that. Like I said, I feel I take the chat room a little too for granted a little, so I definitely want to give the chat room some love, and anyone that listens live some love, especially Patty Backs. So yeah, anyone that listens live, you get the Big W Award, whether it's Set Point or the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I really do appreciate you listening live, not just this week or for the past week. So you get the Big W Award for that. So that'll pretty much be that when it comes to the Big W Award. So now we gotta get on into the Dum Dum of the Week Award. So the Dum Dum of the Week goes out to someone that basically says or does something stupid, and no one is safe from this award. Not my neighbor's dog, not anybody. No one is safe from this award. And I've kind of already given this Dum Dum of the Week award out to this guy, but I don't know what this person or the editors or someone was thinking approving this, but I don't get this list. So, for those that don't know, Colin Cowherd, the man actually has he says some crazy things, but honestly, this might be the most craziest thing I've seen. So, he actually, on his show, he put a list of a list of quarterbacks that can win the Super Bowl that have been drafted since 2013. So his list is as follows. Colin Cowherd's list of quarterbacks that can't win the Super Bowl that have been drafted since 2013. I actually did listen to the show or watch the show on TV. It was actually an error that said that can win Super Bowl. So that was actually an error on the video editor's part. So video editors are already trending the thin ice of Dum Dum of the Week. But here was Colin Cowherd's list of quarterbacks that could win the Super Bowls drafted since 2013. All right, I'll get into it for real. Blake Bortles, who's not in the league. Yeah, you already see where this list is going. Blake Bortles, not in the league. Teddy Bridgewater, who's not even a starter. Sam Darnold, who is basically in the back of the line when it comes to the San Francisco 49ers QBs. Justin Fields. Okay, that's a little questionable, but he's on the Bears, so that's understandable. Daniel Jones on the Giants, which... okay. Mac Jones, who's on the Patriots. That's understandable, because the AFC is stacked. Trey Lance, he's on the Niners, but he could get that starting position off, so this is where I disagree with that list. Jordan Love, he's on the Green Bay Packers. Now, I kind of slightly agree with this one, just because, like I said, the NFC is kind of two-headed monster-ish with the Eagles and the Niners. Everyone else is pretty much either a dark horse or a hopeful or a long shot. Paxton Lynch. I don't even know who that is. Is he like a backup or something? What? Paxton Lynch? EJ Manuel. EJ Manuel? Johnny Manziel. Manziel hasn't even been in the league. He's been out of the league since forever. Marcus Mariota. Okay, well, he's not even a starter anymore. I think he is now relegated. I don't even think he's in the league anymore. I think his starting days are done ever since the Falcons gave him the hook. Baker Mayfield. Now, he's on the Bucs, and he's got two good receivers in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So, I'm not going to rule... And I kind of disagree with that. I mean, can't win the Super Bowl, I agree with. But if the Bucs somehow roll the dice and they somehow cheat their way to the Super Bowl... Well, not cheat their way, but they manage to bounce their way past the Niners and the Eagles, and they somehow manage to squeeze their way into the Super Bowl, and Baker manages to get back to Oklahoma Baker, then maybe. But I could understand putting Baker on this list. Kenny Pickett. I mean, you don't want to disregard any Mike Tomlin coach team, but like I said, AFC is so stacked. Okay, and so that's understandable. Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen. The dude has been out of the league since probably 2021. And Colin Cowherd put him on a list of quarterbacks that can't win a Super Bowl since 2013. He's not even on a team. Mitch Trubisky. I mean, he's a backup for the Steelers. Do I need to repeat the whole Kenny Pickett thing? Carson Wentz. I mean, he's a backup for the Commanders. And the whole Carson Wentz thing blew up. So I don't think he's going to be getting a Super Bowl with the Commanders, whether he's backing up or not. Zach Wilson. Unless Aaron Rodgers carries him, no. I mean, the AFC is just too top-heavy. And then Jameis Winston of the Saints. I mean, he lost his spot to Derek Carr. And again, unless Jameis Winston returns to form and he steals the spot from Derek Carr, whether it's Carr getting hurt, hopefully not, or Carr struggling, and then Jameis Winston returns to Florida State form, I just don't see that happening. Now, there was one name that really just surprised me and irritated the rest of everybody. It irritated everyone on the internet. Colin Cowherd also listed in his list of quarterbacks that can't win a Super Bowl that have been drafted since 2013, Dwayne Haskins. Now, you're probably wondering, what about Dwayne Haskins? What's so bad about that? Dwayne Haskins actually tragically passed away in, I think, a car crash in 2000, about a couple or so years ago. Yeah, Colin Cowherd put a quarterback who sadly passed away as a quarterback that can't win a Super Bowl on a list. Sorry, I just need to get some fresh air. I've seen some stupid things from Colin Cowherd, but this might actually top the list. This dude literally put a quarterback that passed away on a list of quarterbacks that can't win a Super Bowl that have been drafted since 2013. First of all, who approved that list? It's called proofreading. It's called editing. Aren't there producers on the herd? Or does Colin Cowherd just approve everything by just saying, this looks good. I'll just approve of it myself. What the heck? FS1, you screwed up just as much as Colin Cowherd did. You should be ashamed of yourself. This is not just on Dwayne Haskins. This is not just the whole Dwayne Haskins thing basically, being a big blunder. It's all of this list. Johnny Manziel hasn't been in the league since Lord knows when. Hello? Like, Paxton Lynch? Are we joking me? Blake Bortles has retired, I think, as well. Like, this list is so horribly terrible. Like, you could make it an explanation for every quarterback on this list of this being bad. It's like Colin just threw this list together and the producers just straight up approved of it and they didn't even bother reading it. I'm just disappointed, dude. Like, this is just so bad of a list. Like, it shouldn't have even been passed. So, I'm sorry, but this is just so bad on so many levels. And I even quote posted this and said, I know who's getting Dumb of the Week. And I know people make mistakes. People, unfortunately, see things slip through the cracks. But honestly, this is probably the worst mistake by far. I'm sorry, but this is just so terrible and so bad. And the whole Dwayne Haskins thing was just the icing on the cake. Like, it was bad enough they put he had to put Dwayne Haskins on there without even doing research. But he had to put all these other names on there that don't even play in the NFL. Like, good God, dude. This is just bad on so many levels. So, to Colin Cowherd, I hate to basically do this to you because I do like your show, but you kind of need to get Dumb of the Week yet again. And again, this is no disrespect to you. I like you as a sports personality, but you must not have had your coffee that morning. So, you are this week's Dumb of the Week, and don't even argue with me about it. No one should argue with me about it. Get out of here, Colin Cowherd. I said get out of here, Colin Cowherd. That's your cue, my guy. You're so dumb. Wait. Talk to him a little louder, my guy. Talk to him for the people at home in the back. Tell him how you really feel with your chest.
You're so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Give him one more for good measure.
You're so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And that's not just for Colin Cowherd. That's actually for FS1 and the producers and the editors and for anyone that approved of that being posted on his show. I'm sorry, but that's just terrible editing and just terrible approval of and it's just lazy work altogether. I'm just saying, it's just terrible and laziness altogether, and it's just bad, dude. As a former sports editor, I just think that should have just been that should not have just been passed. And I feel Colin Cowherd should have just done his research a little bit better. But what do I know? I'm not a sports head. I'm not in the industry. I'm just some guy trying to make it here who does this podcast. What do I know? Anyway, but that is going to do it for this week's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for me to get on out of here, because I got me some grub to get before I head off to a high school football scrimmage. Yeah, dig? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. Shout out to the chat room, Mike, Pat, Angela, Winstead, Mikey Two Guns, and Larry B. I really do appreciate everybody for tuning in. I will be back next Friday on my regular time, so don't you worry. Even though I have work at 6 a.m., nothing's going to tear down me, Teran Rodriguez. I will be back ready and willing in the building. And I'll also be back for Set Point. But I will be back at 3 p.m. for Set Point. 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern for Set Point. Just because I have UCLA men's volleyball coach and the U.S. men's national volleyball coach John Spera as a guest. But for everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourself an amazing weekend. Make sure you proofread all of your work. Don't worry, I didn't script that. But do have a great weekend. Please stay safe. It's still going to be plenty hot if need be, so apply your sunscreen. Be safe out there. And I will see you next week for SoCal Supreme Sports Show and Set Point. See me on Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time, or hear me on Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time for Set Point. Same time, different time, same place, same volleyball content and SoCal content on IE Sports Radio. Have a great weekend, everybody, and remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace!